Welcome everyone to CFTA and our monthly Storytellers night. Please give a warm round of applause to your host, Mike Durbecker.
Greetings, salutations, and thank you very much. Anybody need a break? In any way, shape, and form? I mean, you need to give someone a break. You need to get a break yourself. You want to take a break from your life. You have a coworker whose neck you would deeply like to break. I have been, just to give you a little bit of background, I have been coming here as a performer for around a year now and have been a host for 3 or 4 events at this point. I was asked what topic I wanted to do for, this is the first open mic for storytellers specifically. There have been open mics for stand-up, but this is the first for storytelling. I liked the idea, woo, yeah, enthusiasm. No one watching this on camera will see, but can I have a show of hands? Who is going to be telling a story tonight? A lot of you bastards, isn't there? Okay, this is wonderful. No, this is great. I wanted to do the entire idea of a break because I thought there's something very universal about it. You were going to remember some time when you were in desperate need of one and either A, got it, and there's a wonderful story, or B, you got it and it went sideways with alarming rapidity and didn't help you, or you gave someone a break because you thought it was the right thing to do and they thanked you and you send Christmas cards every year, or it went sideways. I mean, you can go any one of many directions. A woman I know in Toronto, I invited her to this event and she said, "Oh, it's about a break. Can I tell you about the thousands of promises that my now ex-husband has broken for me, Michael? Can I talk about that on stage?" I said, "Yes." "Will it violate a court order?" And it would. I'm not making that up, by the way. She told me her story, and then she said, I did sign a non-disparagement clause. What if I changed their name? I said, "You're free to do that, but we do film this, so perhaps that's not the best idea, especially if things haven't been settled." Doesn't sound particularly cheerful, but I have a story I'm going to tell later this evening, and I had a choice of 3. One is about, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. One was about a possible car accident. One is about someone who made a very ill-advised phone call, and then there's the one I'm going to tell, which I'll keep as a surprise, because they were the most immediate examples I could think of where I was asked to do something that was out of character and something I didn't expect the individual in question to ask for. And whichever one I end up doing, I wanted to explore why I did it and how it ended. So I'm not sure what anyone here is going to be performing. If your story's funny, that's great. If it's serious, that's great. We are open to anything. One of the reasons I like this place so much is that it is a truly open mic environment, and I've seen heartbreaking material on this stage. I've also seen screamingly funny, and I've seen remarkably obscene and screamingly funny at the same time. So come back for one of the comedy nights if this kind of whets your appetite, and please come back for storytelling events. We're going to be doing it monthly for the rest of the year, I hope. Yep, hey, I like yep. And I want to give a thanks to 2 of the people behind this wonderful establishment. One of them is Jake, who's sitting over there, standing over there. The entire CFDA has been his idea to promote spoken word. I have been doing storytelling for the last 10 years, so I'm obviously a great supporter of spoken word. And the other person is going to be our first storyteller for this evening. His name is Dexter Eco. He has been nice enough to encourage my behavior in both performing and hosting, and he always has a great narrative. I've seen him do a lot. He's going to do something great tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Dexter.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. So, a break. I have 2 stories where I received a break and learned a valuable lesson, and given a break, we'll start with the former. I can safely assume none of you are shoplifters. So when I was in high school, I wanted to impress my friends. And being 47 back then, Generation X, with parents who are more focused on working, discipline was something that I got away with in terms of not receiving any. And I would steal basketball cards, I would steal chocolate bars. I guess back then it was typical for kids to have the 5-finger discount whenever they felt like it. And then I got a little too cocky, where a friend of mine during lunch, so I'm in grade 9, and he's like, Dex, I'm hungry. Could we just go to the convenience store? And can you grab me some chips? And I was annoyed because I had class to get to. So we walk into a convenience store. He's behind me. And I walk into this place like it's my own kitchen, because I get away with so much so much like whenever I felt like it. And I grab him a bag of chips, put it in my jacket, and start heading out the door. The store owner blocks me, and he says, young man, come with me. Right away, I knew I was in shit. I was like, I never imagined this could possibly happen. How stupid of a kid am I? Now, he did me the biggest favor by teaching me this lesson. Because let me just get to the story. He said, give me back the bag of chips. I'm going to call the police on you. And I said, sir, please do not do that. My parents would kill me, obviously. And he said, okay, well, give me your phone number. And I said, okay, here's my phone number. I gave him my parents' phone number. And he called it to make sure that it was mine. He goes, you better not be lying to me. Hi, hello? Is this the home of Dexter Eco? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Can you tell him that he left his textbooks at the convenience store? Okay, thank you. Great. Good thing you didn't lie to me, kid. Now you're going to leave your textbooks here, and you're going to give me $20 to get your textbooks back, and that's it. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. Next day, come back. Give him $20. He gives me textbooks. He wasn't pleased, obviously. But from that point on, I never stole anything, not a thing. Everything was more like, okay, I have to have a moral compass with everything. I'm growing up now. I can't be some stupid kid. And that was my break that I was given. I remember him. He's forgotten me. With giving a break, this is more of an amusing story. Tying into me being a mischievous kid. When I was around 8 or 9, I had this fascination with capturing small animals like mice and somewhat torturing them. So I would create this little mousetrap for myself, a live mousetrap, like a box. My dad was quite handy. He'd work in the garage with woodworking, making furniture, building things. And I kind of like watched him, figured out how I can use the tools, and then glued together a box with a sliding door with a little hook at the end, put a little bit of bait. And every time I caught a mouse, my little 8-year-old fingers would grab the mouse and be in so much joy that it was my captive prisoner for me to do whatever I wanted. So I'd like put it in the tub and just watch it, like, wow, I have you. You're a live, real toy. I'd take the mouse, put it in a sock, and I'd spin it and go, yeah, you're going to get so dizzy. Drop it on the carpet, and then watch it just roll around in circles. I know, this is pretty bad. Like, I know. I'm telling you, I've never... So I go to that point, put it in the dryer, and turn it on without heat, just to see it spin around. And then this mouse is pretty tired. I'm like, okay, well, I'll put you in the toilet now, hold you by the tail, flush the toilet while holding you, and making up little stories. Oh no, I'm gonna die. No, I will save you, mouse. I will save you. Take it. And then I would just continue with this torturous. So the next step, okay, it gets a little worse. I take the mouse, and I'm like, what else can I do with this mouse? I will put it in the microwave. So I open the microwave door, put it in the microwave, close the door, I push some buttons, boom, 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 and I'm looking at the mouse, and then my conscience kicks in. Something deep down inside said, don't do this. This is very wrong. And I'm like, okay, this is not right. Opened the microwave door, took out the mouse, went outside, and I let it go. Inside, a strawberry basket that was tied to helium balloons. You're free, mouse. You're free. And from that day forward, I never tortured, killed anything ever again. True story. Please welcome back to the stage, Mike Durbecker.
You wait, stay for a second.
Okay, thank you.
We have an eclectic lineup this evening, so I actually want to do a short post-mortem of this. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a confession as well. Let's start with the post-mortem.
Yeah.
The shoplifting, was that 100% your last incident, or did you, keeping in mind the statute of limitations is probably gone, did you ever do anything like in a record store or department store, anything after that?
No, never. The anxiety that I felt, the knowing that you're exposed, to feel that the secret you have is no longer a secret, and it's quite, it's criminal. And as a kid, once you receive that feeling, it's either you don't care or you buckle, and that's what I did. And yeah, my morals just developed from there.
And as for the mice, I'm amazed that at the age of 8 years old you could actually catch a mouse. I didn't have any didn't have the physical dexterity to possibly do that. How do you wake up one day and decide I can catch a mouse? Or I can build a trap to catch a mouse.
Yeah, I built a trap, and I would watch my dad work, and you pick things up because he'd make me help him renovate homes. He'd make me help him assemble furniture. So I knew how to use equipment. And then I guess I got the idea off of TV. And then I said, okay, I can simply glue those pieces together, cut them the way I want them, and then catch mice with it. Because I just saw little creatures like that, like gerbils and hamsters, not as pets, but as toys. That's how I saw them.
Okay. Just in case anybody here thinks he's a horrible person for doing that to a mouse, which I do not, but in case anyone does, I have a confession. I did the equivalent to a cat once. No. It's not as bad as it sounds. I used to share a house with someone on Eglinton Avenue in Toronto, and she had this beautiful big white cat who would crawl into my bed and would kind of crawl into my pillows. I don't know why. The beast would crawl into my pillowcase. So I was trying to change my bed one day. I'm changing the linen, and Dante, the cat, climbs into the pillowcase. And Dante, get out, reach in. The cat claws me and bites me. I went, okay, fine. Picked up the case and swung it around for a minute and a half. Said, you enjoy that, Dante? How you doing, guy? How you doing? Stopped it. The cat did not twitch, but I heard this very low I realized, I literally have to let the cat out of the bag. And it was so still. I thought, the cat's not hurt. The cat is waiting for its moment. And I did something unforgivable. Not towards the cat. I walked across the hallway to my roommate's boyfriend and said, hey, Dave, can you hold this? He said, sure. What is it? Opened it. The cat climbed him, stood on his head for a second, glared at me, jumped down, didn't talk to me for 3 days. So you're not the only person who has taken a small mammal and swung it around. I feel like I know you a little better now.
Well, Brothers of Mischief.
There you go, man. Mea culpa.
Thank you,
very much. I can't retroactively be charged with this, can I? It did happen in 1991, so I think over 30 odd years we're okay. And for the record, I never ever shoplifted. I was a product of Baptist Sunday School, so I was convinced it would do something terrible. Although, I got to confess, I did change I can't believe this. I changed the price on a hat in 1985 because at the time I thought it would be unspeakably cool to wear a fedora, which was not a great idea. I think the hat was $40. I switched the price at a Bay outlet to $20 and bought it. And the Bay is about to go out of business. And my first thought was, okay, they can't prosecute me over the hat. Thank God. So hopefully I won't release the film of this until after the Bay has gone down. I'm going to do this for the evening, by the way. As someone tells a story, if you are willing, I'm going to come up and ask for a couple of details about that story. If you do not want me to do that, just politely say no and I won't do it. And I'm going to introduce the second storyteller. I do not know anything about this individual other than his name. And his name is David Summers. He is about to come on stage. Was that right? It's Summers, not Summer, right? I know nothing about him. He looks like a nice enough guy. He's wearing a Snoopy t-shirt. This is an open mic. Be open, ladies and gentlemen. David Summers.
Hello. Okay, so this is a story about during the pandemic, my computer broke, and this is the break I got was my mother stepped in and bought me a new computer. And this is just sort of the preamble to how that happened. It's called Sandy on the Loose. My mother has gone a little weird, mostly since she left Randy, leaving him for some old man named Domingo who she said was a millionaire. Some kind of millionaire he must be, shacking up with my mother. Or maybe it was even before that. She was probably already pretty weird back when she started telling me about how she had another apartment that no one else knew about. It was in another city, and she'd drive there just to get away from Randy for a few hours. Go there to sit with her back against the wall and listen to the radio. There isn't even any furniture here, she'd tell me over the phone from this secret place. In the summer, I can sit on the balcony and listen to my music. But when it gets cold out, I've got to sit inside on the floor like a dog. Then she'd tell me that's where she was right now, on the floor while she was talking to me, and she'd start to laugh hysterically. Or could the weirdness have started before this? I think it might have. Maybe beginning as far back as when her mother died, and all those psychics kept showing at her house. Back when she was taking endless pictures of all that cigarette smoke crowding the corners of her living room, if only to prove there really were ghosts to be seen in it. Sometimes of her dead mother, sometimes of Native Americans. You see him? Right there, wearing that headband with a feather. Can you see it? Do you see it? She would tell me this ghost must have been sent from ancient burial grounds by her mother to keep her safe. And if I said I could see him too, at least sort of, she would always look relieved. I miss my mother so much, David. I feel so alone. But I would never think too much of any of this, and it just seemed like harmless grief until my brother told me about the time she jumped out of her car in the middle of the highway. Said she had run off into a storm of feathers, thousands of them pouring from the back of an overturned truck full of busted mattresses, trying to get to them before they blew away in the wind and the rush of traffic. How we'd watched our mother waving her arms around, collecting as many as she could, stuffing them into her pockets as cars swerved all around her. Her psychic told her to watch out for feathers, my brother explained when he could tell what I was about to ask next. How they're a sign Grandma is thinking of her up in heaven. I sometimes think of my mother out there on that highway, grabbing at her mother's spirit, fluttering in the stink of all that diesel and hot sun and chrome, and realize she's been sort of gone since way back then. Maybe even longer by the way my brother shakes his head when I say if that was a moment when she started getting bad, if that's when he noticed something was wrong. Fuck, dude, you're so lucky you weren't raised by her, he tells me. She's always been like this. She's always been nuts. She sucks. And so this morning when I talked to my mother on the phone for the first time in a long time, standing outside next to the mailbox, she talks and talks and talks. I already know she's been weird for a while now. Don't worry about it much, and I'm able to continue nodding my head along to her voice, no matter what she is telling me, because it's all I can expect to hear from someone like Sandy. Things like how she's begun to worry about her cat is reading her mind and thinks she's evil, or how she can no longer completely trust who is or isn't a lizard, or why she hates all her old friends for mysterious reasons I'll never quite understand. I just keep nodding my head as she tells me now how she wants me to write her life story, how she has lots of secrets, that she's going to take the whole corrupt system down, all of it, starting with the government, and that I should interview her and keep track of everything she says, just in case she suddenly dies. Just let me know if you need anything from me so you can do this, as she says, assuring me there are no limits and I can ask for anything, computers, printers, tape recorders. You know Domingo's a millionaire, right? I tell her I do know this, that I'll think about it, get off the phone and go back inside with my handful of pizza flyers, likely to have completely forgotten about her promise if it wasn't for the laptop that arrives in my box at my door a few days later. A perfect place for me to jot down a reminder that even though my mother has gone weird, she is trying, and that maybe now, if only I turn this thing on, start writing, I can begin to try and figure out where it all went wrong. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Do you want to talk about that, or is it?
Should I talk through this?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fascinating. I want to ask a question carefully. I'm not making fun of what you said.
Yeah.
She was taking pictures of smoke.
Yeah.
Did she do anything with the pictures? I mean, did she print them and put them up in her walls? Or?
It was like one of those Facebook things. She would take all these pictures, and it would be like you'd see the shoulder of someone, and then a bunch of smoke, and she'd be like, see, and it would just sort of be seeing sort of a Rorschach test to sort of see, oh, maybe there's a face in there, and maybe whatever she wanted to see.
And again, I'm not trying to ask something painful.
No, yeah.
The psychics. I have known a handful of people who are convinced they're psychic, who will give readings and they will not take money. They believe it's immoral.
Yeah.
And I have run into a couple of all-out, these guys are money-grubbing and horrible. What type did your mother hit?
Well, I never actually met the psychics, but the stories I told were she was giving them all their money for crystals and little
for
things.
God's sake.
But then there's the issue is like the feather story was true, and the day that all these mattress feathers came across the highway, the psychic did say, look for feathers hours before that happened. So
are you serious?
Yeah, that's a story.
That's the weirdest karma I've heard of.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful story.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. When you get a relative at that point who is clearly not on the same reality principle, and I want to again make it clear, I'm not trying to make fun of people at that level. I have a family full of them. When I was around 10 years old, my great grandfather, who was born in like 1897, went into hospital. He had fallen down a flight of stairs. He was not in the best of shape, but he was still alive, and they thought he'd come out. I remember my mother taking me a little south of here to Port Colborne, Ontario. It's Hamilton, you must know where it is, right? Yeah, it's on the lake. She took me to this ancient hospital in Port Colborne and kept saying, now, Papa is he's a little confused, Michael. He loves you very much, and he'd love to see you, and he'd love to talk, but he might say things that sound a little unusual, so I would like you to smile and say yes. I was around 10 years old, and I sat down beside my great-grandfather, who is saying, it's so nice to see you, dear, and I'm not going to be here for very much longer, and they just need to change how much is going through me, and the fish are kind of make a fuss sometimes, but that's not so bad, and everyone's speaking French, and that's nice. I haven't heard it for a long time. My mother is behind him doing, It's okay, just let him talk. Over the conversation, we discovered that he thought that he was a water pipeline from Quebec to Maine. That's why he was in hospital. They were running water through him from Quebec to Port Colborne to Maine, and the fish were speaking French because they came out of Quebec. I left the hospital, and my mother told me that he just sounds confused, and I said, I didn't laugh, and she said, you can laugh now. Go for it. God rest his soul. So it's what do you do in a situation like that? Like, I don't have an answer for that. You look at it, you deal with it, you realize the person you want is still, behind whatever clouds have appeared. So that's a beautiful story. Thank you for telling it. Now, I'm blind as a bat, and, oh, cool. The next person, again, I do not know personally. I'm delighted to see them. His stage name is Lightheart Ed, and his real name is Keegan Buchanan. Is that right? That's right. Okay, and here he comes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everybody. I am Lightheart Ed. You can also find me on Instagram as light_heart_ed. I didn't think that there was enough underscores in the world, so I put them all in my name. So I have two stories for you tonight. One is about the magic that can happen when you receive a break. The second story is the importance of learning a lesson when you do receive a break as well. So without further ado, here's my first story. Honking horns and spitting men, billowing smokestacks on the horizon. Storefronts closed and vacant signs flash, gutters glisten and car windows bashed. But they say there sits a store, the size from me to you, hidden in plain sight, but no one even knew. The door, like a fine finished oak and carved with precision, the windows, magnificent ribbons block the voyeuristic intention. It could be confused with a bar or even a baker. But like magic, the sign now reads, the shoemaker. With a click, the door creaks open. The lock, I suppose it must be broken. A gust of wind pushes on my back and I stumble through and it shuts with a whack. I'm met with a cozy orange glow and tremendous wood arches, a spiraled staircase and thousands of shoeboxes. Suddenly, an old record crackles to play. With a whoosh, a majestic fireplace burns and licks away. As my eyes adjust, I meet the gaze of an old man sat beside his shoe-full displays. His open palm gestures to the finest suede chair. I'll be with you in a moment, just sit right there. And when I looked back, he was gone. But still, I sat and I waited, and not for long. Footsteps clunked down that spiraled stair, and I wondered, how did he get all the way up there? Excitedly, he says, "You bring me good news." I reply, "How do you mean?" And he points, "You have no shoes." I look at my feet and I rub my eyes twice. My shoes peel away and scurry like frightened mice. "How did you do that? Please, let me go." And he calmly replies, "We often run from things we do not know." He gets on one knee and he presents a shoebox. He leans in close and whispers, "Do not remove your socks." He strokes the lid like it were his pet, and he speaks these words, "Rek, ham, yo set." The box begins to quiver and shake so violent he can't contain it. It was going to break. But then just like that, it was so very still. The shoemaker grins and says, "This part is always a thrill." He pops the lid and removes the silk sheet, and when I saw them, my heart skipped a beat. Put them on, he said eagerly. And I've never worn shoes that fit so perfectly. And with a wink and a smile, he leads me to the door. I reach in my pocket and I say, "I wish I could offer you more," but the shoemaker refused and said, "I oughtn't, but tell your friends word of mouth is important." I emerged back into these rhythmic horns and the brightest of blue skies. But when I turned round, only an empty alley there lies. And so, down unknown streets and with vivacious pep, I hold my chin high and take my first step. So that one's called The Shoemaker, and that was the magic that can happen when you receive a break. This next one here, once again, is about the lesson that is important to learn whenever a break happens, because if you don't learn that lesson, well, it's just going to happen again, and you're going to need another break, and you got to get to that point before something breaks. So this one is called Thank You, Chef. What if I told you that there was such a meal that as it touched your lips, you suddenly felt more real? In a bustling city and in a well-known square appeared a large cement box, no colors, just bare. No windows, no doors, just two small dark slits. One had a pair of eyes and the other handed me chicken frites. Crisscrossing crowds all stopped to have a look. I gulped, licked my lips, and one bite is all it took. The chicken was moist and grilled to perfection. The sweet, savory flavors in my tongue made a connection. It was like every bite brought me closer to God. And that's when it happened. I just began to sob. The crowds, they all rushed me, but only for a taste. But then came the dishes in such quick, delicious haste. Out came chicken pot pies, all sorts of Alfredas, braised beef, stuffed lobster, and creamy scalloped potatoes. You see, no matter your status, everyone got their food wish. Nothing was too hard. You asked for it, and whoosh, out slid that dish. Eventually, certain people needed to know, well, what does lay behind those cement walls, though? And so they went at it with a chisel, piece by piece, listening for the faintest sizzle. Deeper they dug, but to no avail. The box was now just half its scale. They found no rooms, no vents, and eventually digging so deep, all that was left was a crumbled cement heap. The people were distraught at what they had done. But not soon after, just left, one by one. There were no more eyes, no more wishes, no more dishes to be served, so people just moved on and ignored lessons learned. You see, there's always something to distract our minds, leading us to chase answers we never come to find. But every now and again, I still whisper sweetly under my breath, that chicken Fritz, thank you, Chef.
Whoa.
Can this guy get another round of applause? Congratulations. Okay, I got a million questions. Firstly, I used to be an actor, so I've done Moliere, which is all done in rhyming couplets, and I performed children's theater for a while. That's all in rhyming couplets. You've just come out stage. You've made it look easy, and you did it smoothly. How the hell do you do that?
Well, I always had a passion for theater. Ever since I was very little, I would always kind of put on theater for my parents. Whether they would watch it was another question. But there was always something there, and I did the morning announcements in school and stuff like that. And so I always tried to get in front of a crowd, and so I've become pretty comfortable with that. But yeah, everything else came with just a lot of practice.
Do you have a particular influence? I mean, that sounded. I'm hearing Dr. Seuss, maybe some of that Moliere stuff, maybe like assorted lyrics. Like old Mad Magazine song parodies, anything like that?
Nothing too much. I don't actually read much, to be honest. I have been told I have, like Dr. Seuss, I've heard. Shel Silverstein is another one.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
That I've heard. But yeah, for the most part, I just try to write things that make me happy. And whatever comes from that, I feel I can't go wrong with.
That's amazing. Thank you.
No problem. Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks very much. Find this fine gentleman on Instagram. I got to change mics. One sec. So I'm hosting the event. I'd like to do my own story. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And full confession, so I thought this would be a great topic, and then after announcing it and after the posters went out, realized I have, most of my personal experiences with a break is to want to tell people, you know, I screwed up and you let me through it. Thank you very much. I tend to overdo that. People will say, you know, Mike, you've already mentioned it. Please shut up. So I don't want to talk about that. The 3 stories I mentioned earlier, 2 of them, the people involved would probably see it, and I don't have their permission, so I don't want to do that. But the 3rd one is an example of giving somebody a break and not wanting someone to go, thank you so much. It was like giving the break because it was easier than the alternative. So that's not exactly altruistic, but it is what happened. So here's the scenario. I'm around 18 years old. My cousin Hillary is staying with us for a couple of weeks. My cousin Hillary was a dance student, and she had been a gymnast at one point. And she's a bit younger. She's got an entirely different group of friends. I don't know anything about them. We ended up going to the same high school for a while, so I knew a handful of her friends, and some of them were gymnasts who followed her that way. But in general, she led her own life, and my parents at the time said, if you want to go out, just come back in time, and don't do anything your mother wouldn't want to find out, and that kind of thing. And it was pretty uneventful. I liked having her around. I always liked her. She was smart. She had the same taste in weird 1980s movies as I did, and it was the 1980s because, obviously I'm old. But she did something that wasn't particularly bright, and it has never been explained in great detail to me, other than it's around 10:30, 11 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm actually expecting her to come into the house because she went to a movie with some friends. But I get this phone call. I'm lunged for the phone as to not wake my parents up, and it's Hillary saying, Hi, I am at the pool hall that's at Young and Steele's, and I was hoping that someone could maybe pick me up. Can you come, Michael, can you come, please, can you come, and can you bring Muggsy? Okay, yeah, no, it's great. I'll just be here, bye, and hung up. She's obviously not happy, and she's asked me to bring Muggsy. Muggsy was my dog. Would you like to meet my dog? Muggsy. Muggsy was a tiny, delicate, sweet, 65-pound female English bulldog. They're harmless. I mean, they look vicious. I promise you, they don't look it, but they're completely harmless dogs. They're short and they're fat and they're ugly as sin. They are very, very sweet-tempered. They are completely docile. You got kids? Does anybody here have kids? Very young kids? Give them a bulldog. They can ride the dog around the house. They can poke the dog in the eye. The worst thing the dog will do is look affronted and walk away. If you don't piss them off, you have a friend for life. Here's the thing. Don't piss them off. They were literally bred to fight bulls and bears. Now, she was a sweet dog. We would buy these heavy plastic chew toys that were kind of like a handle. We'd dangle it in front of the dog. The dog would lunge at it, chomp it, and I could pick the dog up, and she would hang there. I tried to do it for 10 minutes in a row once. My arms broke before the dog did. They're really good at locking their jaws. They're really good at being vicious if they need to be, but they never need to be. They're big and they're fat. They like being petted. They like sniffing things, and they like sleeping. That's about it. But trying to be quiet about this because I don't want my parents to worry. I grab the keys. I grab the dog, and the dog's going, oh, are we going out? This is going to be good. Can we go? Where are we going? Can I sniff something? This is going to be good. Are they going to pet me? I like when people pet me. People can pet me anytime they want. This is going to be wonderful. And I take her to this pool hall, Young and Steele's in Toronto. It's kind of suburban. I've been there. It's not a horrible place, but She's 14. That may not be the best place to be. So I walk downstairs into this place, and there are 7 or 8 pool tables, and there are a bunch of 17-year-old guys trying to look tough. And there is, at the far end of the place, there's Hillary. And she's smiling, but it's a really fixed kind of rictus grin. And the dog is looking around going, oh, could someone pet me here? Is there something I can, oh, it smells like smoke. I like, oh, is it tobacco? Is there food any place? This is one. Oh, can I sniff this? I'm going to sit here. Oh, are these people going to pet me? And she doesn't really notice. And people are looking at the dog going, oh yeah, dogs look like a cartoon, man. And Hillary walks forward saying, hi, you're here. The guy beside her puts his arm out like this. He doesn't grab her, but it's to stop her from walking. The moment Muggsy sees that, she charges. I've got her on a leash, 65 pounds of muscle, pulls me forward. I mean, literally almost takes my shoulder out. I've never seen her do this. She starts snarling, growling, and barking. And they're weird, short dogs, but they're really big. So everyone who was standing around looking at her, all of a sudden, all of this guy's friends suddenly hit the walls as if to say, oh, you know what? You look like you're doing good. We'll just stay here until you need us. The dog is doing circles, is running. I'm trying to catch up to the dog. The guy who's holding my cousin sees the dog and lowers his arm very slowly. Hillary stands there. I get on the floor to grab the dog by the collar because I can't hold her by the leash. I've got my arm around her shoulders. I'm saying, hey, do you want to meet Muggsy? She's great. I can let her go. Do you want to meet her? And the guy says, okay. Looks at my cousin and says, I'm Michelle's boyfriend. I didn't tell you. And she says, what? Yeah, I know. I'm Michelle's boyfriend. Yeah, I know you know her, and I was going to keep you here because, she's going to be here, and it was going to be a surprise. Hillary says, Michelle, like from coaching class? Yeah, I'm her boyfriend. I just mentioned your name, and she's going to come soon, and that's why we were keeping you here. The dog is having none of this. I am holding her back. The more the guy moves his feet, the more her radar is hitting the feet. And I'm looking at this guy who genuinely looks repentant, and I'm beginning to put this together. It's obvious. Maybe she met these guys. She was going to stay for 20 minutes, and they kept saying, no, you can't leave yet. We're going to do something later. And she got terrified. So I'm staring at this guy. I want to let the dog go. I really do. But I look at Hillary, and she's looking around, and she finally just looks at me and does this. I pull the dog back one more time, and I say, we're leaving now. Sure you don't want to say hi? The dog is frothing at the mouth, barking, looks ferocious, does not look like a cartoon dog anymore, looks like she wants blood. And I can't do this. I have to give the guy a break, and it's not willingly, but I realize this wasn't a guy trying to throw his weight around. This is a guy who did something really stupid. If she had said, I don't know who you're talking about, I probably would have let the dog go. I realized this guy's done something stupid. My cousin has said, let's get out of here. And I also realized if the dog bites the guy, she's going to clutch onto him and probably not let go for 20 minutes. They're going to call the police. They're going to call animal control. This could be an assault charge, at best. So I grab the dog. Hillary walks past. The dog begins to calm down a bit as soon as she's around me. And then all the guys on the walls walk forward to say hi to this nice dog. And the dog does a circle around me, and they all back up again. Snarling, yelling. I'm walking forward. I'm dragging the dog. We go up the stairs. We get to the street level, and all of a sudden the dog is like, oh, okay, are there people here who can pet me? Who's going to pet me today? What's that? Oh, it smells bad, but it smells good, but it smells bad. This is wonderful. Complete different. And my cousin's shaking, and I said, do you want to tell me what happened? She said, no, we met them at a movie. We just thought we'd play some pool, and they've kept me here for 90 minutes. Every time I try to leave, they stood in front of the door. But I know Michelle, and I know her boyfriend is a dick. So on some level, everybody got a break that evening. Firstly, I gave the guy a break by not releasing a vicious 65-pound dog that has been bred to fight bulls onto his feet and his legs. I gave Hillary a break by not mentioning this to either my parents or her mother. And for the record, I did stop at McDonald's and I bought the dog a cheeseburger on the way home. Because she's a good girl. She's a very good girl. Thank you. Muggsy is alas no longer with us, but I like to think, in spirit she was here. They were your sweet dogs. So we've had 4 people so far. I think we should probably do like a 15-minute intermission. Any ideas? It's good with everybody? 15 minutes, smoke them if you got them. Some lovely refreshments over there, and we'll come back. Thank you very much. All those assembled, we're going to start again in around 2 minutes. One more time. You're going to smoke them very, very quickly. Thanks. Greetings and salutations once again. This audience is actually getting bigger, which I find really reassuring. Okay, another show of hands. Who has yet to perform a story or who wants to and hasn't signed up? Anybody? Okay, good. Any questions, any answers? Does anyone care for a mint? I have reading glasses in my pocket. I am desperate to not use them. And I'm also desperate not to have to hold this 200 feet away to read it. So the next person, and I really hope I'm pronouncing the name properly, we have Sarah Farr or Sarah Fall? Fall, okay. With no further introduction, because I can't think of anything, and I will question you after the performance. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Fall. Farr. I'm not even drinking, that's a bad part. All yours, nice to see you.
Okay, so this is about, we can't see anything. Oh, all right. Okay, well, this is cool. This is about a house with broken bones. On a small table by the window in Barbara Harding's living room sat a framed black and white photo. Home was handwritten at the top, Hamilton, Ontario underneath. Barbara had had the home in her family for 78 years. She told me that her parents took the photos shortly after they moved in. Mum and Dad moved in 3 days before I was born, she told me, laughing with a rustic voice. Do you want to take a look around? There had been no other owners since her parents bought the house. It was a modest 1.5-story 1920 brick home at the bottom of Hamilton's escarpment. Just across the road was a brick factory, and right next to it, a railway track. But if the ghosts of the previous residents still haunted the house, the pets didn't seem to care. Barbara's devoted husky cross, Nikki, gnawed contentedly on one of her many toys while we talked. And her tuxedo cat, Squeak, sang her distinctive meow, asking to get up on the table. Still, the dog refused to go into one particular bedroom on the main floor and had never climbed the stairs to the second. The bones of 214 Roslyn Avenue South were periodically rattled by the trains that squealed their way along the bottom of the escarpment. But Barbara didn't notice the trains anymore, and she'd never been fazed by the stories of the previous occupants. The house at 214 was just another ordinary, comfortable home, except for the falls, of course. And that is me.
Are you willing to answer a few questions?
Sure.
All right. What part of England are you from?
Ipswich, Suffolk.
That is
Anglia.
very cool. I lived in Bath for
Okay.
what seemed like a very long time in the early 80s. The house you're talking about, it's a real house?
It's a real house.
Actually made in the 20s? Have you visited it, or did you live there for an
I have been to visit the occupants of the house, or the
Okay.
previous occupants.
Previous
of the
occupants.
house, yes.
The big question, why did you want to share that particular story?
Because it was the only one related to something broken.
That is a completely legitimate answer. No, that was beautiful. Your prose is lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shoot. Please pretend I'm not holding this, by the way. Okay, before I bring up the next person, I want them to shout out from the audience, why are you telling this particular story? And the person is Joanna.
Oh, me?
I'm assuming you're Joanna.
I am Joanna.
Okay.
Why am I telling this particular story? Because I haven't read it in a very long time, and I'm excited just to share my work.
That counts in every way, shape, and form. Ladies and gentlemen, Joanna Asmani. Cool.
Hello, hello. Before I start, does anybody here watch Friends? Friends? Okay, so when I saw the topic, I'm like, were they on a break? Were they or were they not? This has nothing to do with my short story, though, so. But they were? I don't think they were. I'm on Rachel's side. Okay, sounds good, sounds good. So I'm going to be sharing a short story. My short story is about our very confusing Canadian weather and how winter likes to break into spring at the times that it shouldn't be here, right? So my short story is called Bring Me a Spring. Let me tell ya a Canadian story. Upon a time, a Monday was born on March 20th of the year 2017. This date was eagerly awaited by young Canadians on the belief that both calendar and weather would bring a spring. Little did calendar know that weather was deeply missing the winter. Calendar was supposed to bear a cold winter months ago, but weather couldn't match calendar's expectations. He stalled between the seasonal changes and brewed warmer temperatures all winter long. So, weather channeled his sadness and restored the winter a week before a spring was to be born. Weather summoned all its might to embrace the winter, unveiling him in pure, cold, icy fashion. Though he arrived at a perilous, risky hour, The hearts of young Canadians welcomed his frosty figure. Snow wove itself into their tails, granting winter a stay longer than expected. When a spring rose from calendar, weather told the winter to stand his ground and squat in place like the stone-cold fox he was. But a spring had the sun on her side. The sun knew weather very well and was aware of his sadness even when calendar was not. A week after weather froze the winter in place, the sun danced and shined as he prepared ya Canadians for a spring to bear. The sun's spotlight on a spring melted the winter to tears. The winter cried, "Oh crap, it's the sun. He's always caring for a spring more than he does the winter. But if it's just between this a spring and me, well, I don't care if a spring was born the other day. I'm not leaving because I was here first. Plus, my shit is everywhere." The winter came and went as he pleased, leaving a trembling spring unaware of her place this season. The sun embraced a spring and said to her, "You know what? The winter is here, but he is so last season. You deserve a turn. It's all a part of life's rotation, standing up to give others a seat. So I'm just gonna pop in with the winter to tell it one itsy bitsy thing." The sun challenged the winter with great energy and said, "Yo, winter, I'm really happy for you and I'm gonna let you finish, but spring is the greatest season of all time. So go ahead, because I'm not scared of you snows. Yeah, that's right. I'll take ya Canadians outside. How about that?" A spring then knew the longer she waits, the harsher the winter will take place. It was then that weather let go, relaxed, and allowed itself to change. The winter agreed that though his time was brief, he would come again next year and the next and the next. Weather watched the clear skies, replaced the snow, bid farewell to the cold, and welcomed the warmth. Thank you.
Can I have another hand, please, for Joanna?
Thank you.
Can you take a few questions?
Sure, yeah.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Were you influenced by kids' stories? Because that reminded me of a bunch of them.
Well, my mom is a children's author for books. She writes children's books, so
That's so cool.
A little bit, yeah.
What has she wrote?
So she wrote, it's a book called Rain Dance, and then she has another one called Victor and the Leopard, and she's working on another one. So my mom, she's African, so she tells a lot of fireside stories and stuff like that, which is kind of
That's what
it's inspired my sort of folktale fireside kind of story.
Do you do this a lot? I mean, do you perform like this a lot, or do you write more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an actor and a singer, so I definitely do perform on stage. I'm getting more into doing poetry and stuff like that, and just like performing more of, like written works like that. But yeah. That's
so cool. I'm like performing poetry is fearless. If you can do that, I really envy you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. Come back anytime. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
I realize there's something I should have said at the start of this. Most of the performances that I've been involved with here, they keep a video recording. I get my hands on the recording and I cut up the performers, and I filter the video into black and white. There's a reason for that because, firstly, this space looks amazing. It looks incredibly big and cavernous, and something that's in black and white and the high contrast. And it also allows the viewer to focus very much on the performer. So they're not looking at, the color balance or what the carpet looks like or and so on and so on. You just kind of stick yourself looking directly at the performer and picking up what they're saying. So anybody here, I'm going to do that unless you tell me otherwise. And if anyone here who's performed writes their email address beside their sign up, I will let you know when it's been done. So same deal. If you don't want that to happen, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be trimming everything that happened tonight. Any objections? No? Hallelujah. I'm a fortunate man. Okay, I'm going to mess up this name horribly, and I don't want to. We're looking for, who is Amen? There? Just before you come up, what made you want to come in tonight? Okay, that theme resonated. I will take that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I pronounce it properly. Ayman Nassar.
Jobs. We were having a conversation yesterday and everyone is talking about how they hate their jobs, but I actually love what I do. Truly, no doubt. And I'll tell you why. This story goes back 10,320 kilometers, where I was born and raised in a country called Kuwait, and my first job in 2007. I worked as an accountant, but it was basically just a glorified title for data entry. It was my first job, so I was very happy with it. My manager was somewhat nice until he wasn't. And that switch from being a nice manager to being someone who, I know you guys won't understand or appreciate this, but my brother was getting married at the time, and I wanted to attend the wedding back home from Kuwait, where I was living, in Egypt, where I'm from. And my manager tells me, bring me your passports, because we weren't allowed to keep our passports. This was the dark ages, in that it was 2007 and the internet was not as prevalent as it is now. The computer I worked on ran Windows 98, if anyone is familiar with it. I kept myself sane by reading people's CVs, or as they were called at the time, biodata. I got my first break when I was able to switch departments, and I went to work for another person. Now, fortunately, this person had internet, like actual internet. And I speak of it like it's this thing that you could not have because it was so difficult to get on. So through the internet, I found another job that I applied for, a public accountant. Now, I need to let you know that I hate accounting. But I applied for it anyway, and I went to the interview, and I failed the interview. They told me that you did not score the passing mark. But that's when I got a break, in that the manager I was going to work for, Ravi Kumar, saw my translation skills. And he said, I'm hiring you based on your ability to translate Arabic into English. And I was ecstatic. And he asked me, what is your expected salary? So I immediately threw a higher number than what I was making. He gave me an even higher number, and he said, but only on one condition. You have to cut your hair, because at the time my hair was yay long. I said, sir, for that amount of money, I will wear a dress and come to work. I went and started working at a public accounting firm. And that's where I met another person. His name was Muhammad Burini. He was from Palestine. What he did for me started off as just me finding a friendly face sitting at a desk next to mine. We became friends. He moved to the country newly. He was recently married, trying to build up his savings so he can bring his wife to Kuwait. And I saw him and I was like, you know what? I'm going to help this guy out. So the first day, I drove him to his house. They were renting him a hotel room. Later on, he managed to find a house with some other people, so roommates. I drove him there. I helped him to find an apartment. When his wife came, I was there to pick her up from the airport with him. When his mother came, I was there to pick her up. When he wanted to put his brother through university and he needed a loan, I helped him out. Now, you could think that, wow, you're such an altruistic person, but I was only doing it because this guy was really nice. But what happened was, throughout his life in Kuwait, he lived right next to where I lived. And he would carpool with me and my mom when we were going to work. So I would wait for him, he would come into the car, he'd talk about what he sees in his daily life. And the more he talked about it, the more I was like, I love what this guy is doing. And through him, I met another person named Amr Mursi. And there's a whole long story there, and I won't go into the details of it, but it is very serendipitous in how he was going to the gym. I joined him at the gym. I left my wallet in his car by mistake. The next day, I needed it for something at work. I had to drive to where he is. And then he tells me, we have an opening in my company in internal audits. Now, what I was doing at the public accounting firm, I was a tax accountant. And if you know anything about Kuwait, it's a country that's famous for a 3-letter word that ends in X, and it's not the first word you think about. It's a tax-free country. But I was working for the tax department. Go figure, go figure. So even though my manager was an amazing person, Ravi Kumar was the best of the best. I'm still in touch with him to this day. If I had stayed in that company, I would have reached a salary that I cannot imagine. But I decided to make a break and bet on myself. And in January 1st, on January 1st of 2010, I became an assistant internal auditor. And I kept that career that I was introduced to because of Muhammad Burini until 2022 when I left Kuwait. Now, the reason I tell you I took a chance on myself and I gave myself a break is because I wanted a career that can transcend borders. That if I ever needed to leave the country where I was born and raised and spent my entire life in, I would be able to land on my feet. And I did land on my feet when I came to Canada. Because even though I moved here in November of 2022, in the 1st of January 2023, I was working as a senior internal auditor at Dofasco. So the theme of giving a break and getting a break resonated well with me because if I hadn't seen that friend and dropped him off and really befriended him and then just learned from him on a whim about what he does, I literally would not be standing where I am today. Thank you.
That is wonderful. Ayman, another hand, please. That is absolutely fascinating. I had 2 questions. If there's no tax anywhere in Kuwait, I knew that. I worked with a guy from Kuwait. He said the same thing. How does the government get any money whatsoever?
Oil.
So are things leaving the country taxed or things coming into the country taxed?
The tax I worked in was corporate tax. So
okay.
It's corporate tax. There's no personal income or VAT or HST. It's just corporate tax, and it's only on the foreign portion of companies. So Kuwaiti companies don't pay taxes.
Okay, I have all kinds of technical questions I want to ask you, which I will not do here because it'll bore the hell out of them. When I'm not doing this, I'm a technical writer, but I've also been a business communicator for 3 of the big banks in Canada. So when you said you wanted something that you wanted a career that you could take out of the country, I understand that. I don't want to leave the country, but I became kind of a writer because I thought I could do this in law, I could do this in finance, I could do this in arts and so on. That was very cool. And I really want to make a cheap joke, which I don't want to do, but I really have to. So you didn't wear the dress to work, did you?
No.
Okay. Because then I was going to say color, the cut off the shoulder. That was absolutely fascinating. And you should give yourself a break. I mean, you said, I was not doing this for altruistic reasons. But then 10 seconds later, you said I was doing it because he was a really nice guy. I mean, if you notice that, that in itself is kind of an altruism. You're recognizing, the guy's compassion, his kindness, and you returned it. So you should give yourself more points.
Thank you.
Cool. And thank you very much. You take that. I'm assuming no one here wants to hear about technical writing as applied to Canadian banking or debit and credit. I work for Metrolinx right now, so I could tell you about the standard operating. You don't want to know that. Okay. I'm looking for George Tarabe. Tarabe? Okay. I know. I have met this gentleman on several occasions. I've seen him once or twice, and he is very good. There you go, dude. Cheers.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm tired. Are you tired? I'm generally tired, and that will come into play later. Just so you know, before I keep going, I have to preface this by saying I did not prepare anything. I just wanted to come up here and speak from the heart. And when I read the theme of giving a break or getting a break, two stories just immediately rushed in my brain, right? The first one is about my wife. And I won't delve into it. It's a bit dark, but I just want to give you a glimpse of my life's partner, who's my wife. She's the most incredible person I've ever met in my life. Her generosity, her love are literally the sole reason I am still here standing today and I get to tell you about this experience. I was in a very dark time in my life. My father had just passed in the exact same way I've always told her I would fear it would happen. I've had this fear, which was it didn't make sense. Like I would tell her this, and she would tell me, "Are you crazy? Who thinks about that?" And it's because I always imagined my dad will die in his sleep, and that's exactly how it happened. So when you put that into play into an adult's life who's trying, to find his voice or his personality in the world, that kind of skews your plans, and it messed me up so hard that I wanted to kill myself. And here I am with this amazing person who, to me, is one of the smartest people I've ever met. She looks at me and she tells me, because I was trying to be an asshole, and she looks at me and she says, "I'll only leave you when I make sure that you're good on your own." And when she said that, something clicked in my brain. I'm like, what does she know that I don't? It's because I trusted her voice more than I trusted my own voice. And through her and her alone, I'm able to stand here today, and I'm still here, and I'm so happy to have met her and have that person in my life. Now, my second story is a direct product of that first story, which is about Canada. And I came here a year ago. I'm an immigrant, the good kind, if you want to. I don't know if you make that distinction. I'm joking. Everybody's good, unless they're nothing. I came here a year ago, and there's a passage. I read a lot of Shakespeare growing up, and there's a scene in Romeo and Juliet that is my favorite play of all time. And I think it was in Scene 2, Act 2, where Juliet, at her balcony, tells Romeo, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" And then she continues by saying, "What's in a name by which we call a rose, by any other name would smell as sweet?" So to kind of infer, like, whatever he is, Romeo, he's my enemy, he's my family's enemy, I will still love him because he's sweet without that name. And that never clicked to me. Like, I never thought about that in depth until I came to Canada. Because, and I know people can complain about Canada, and I know valid stories, I'm sure. Like, I'm not here to cancel out your own experiences. But Canada, in so many shapes and forms, renewed my lease on life. To be able to be in a country where I'm treated like a human, to be able to be in a country where I'm looked at as an equal, to be able to be in a country where my voice matters. I come from a country called Lebanon in the Middle East. I don't know if you've heard about it. We are plagued with bombings, terrorism, wars, you name it. It's a catalog of how can we fuck this up, and it's a buffet. It's all you can get out of that menu. So coming here, and the fact that it's been a year that I have not heard a single explosion, the fact that I can walk safely-ish around Hamilton, that renewed my lease on life. And for that reason, those 37 years that I spent in the Middle East are less than this 1 year I spent in Canada till now. And this is all to say, I am tired. But if an orange clown wants to pull some shit against Canada, I understand what the word Canada means now. And no, there is no other name for Canada except Canada, because that name encompasses all the social contracts this country has built through decades. We are tolerant, we are loving people, we are caring people. And that's what Canada means, and that's what the word Canada will always mean. So if that orange bastard wants to pull shit on Canada, let me tell you this. I'm not too tired to pick up arms and shed my blood for this land. Thank you.
That was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Firstly, I want to apologize. I was thinking, oh, yeah, there are two Georges here. Great, amazing. I went, oh, you idiot. So I apologize.
By the way, my wife works at Metrolinx.
Really? What does she do?
She's a contract manager for Presto.
Talk to me about it later. I may be writing stuff for her right now.
Oh, okay.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Good use of the term crazy orange bastard. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine I can't imagine coming from someplace where you are listening for gunfire or for aggression. So the way you explained it, that you just said it's been a year and it feels like you've jumped forward.
Yeah.
That you've lived more here.
Yeah.
I can understand it, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
It's just incredible that you can do that.
Yeah.
And you just said something beautiful about your wife, like she saved your life. I understand. I feel the same way about my wife, who I've been married to for 25 years.
12 years for me.
12. The next 13 will be even better.
Yeah.
Just sometimes, you know, something is good if you just think back. You know, I can't believe this has been so short.
Yeah. We click so well. Like I get to be goofy with her and I get to be super serious. Like we'll sit down and talk about business. Like you'll feel it's a lawyer and a client. She's a lawyer, by the way.
There you go.
But at the same time, we play like we have water gun fights sometimes. Like I get to be the whole entire bandwidth with her. My entire bandwidth.
You're never too old for a water fight.
No, never.
Just one more question. Why come to Canada in particular? I mean, why not Europe or the States or anywhere?
Okay, so growing up, I come from a family, we're married across the globe. So French, Swiss, Chinese, you name it, right? So growing up, I always kind of surrounded myself with the Western culture. And I've always looked up to this side of the world thinking, I am that. Like, why am I here? I am that. So I've never clicked in that region. So... And then I think I was 13 or 14 when I heard it for the first time in a comedy show where like, oh, Canadians are too nice. I'm like, Canadians? Oh yeah, I know about Canada. And I looked it up and I just fell in love instantly.
That is so cool.
And until this day, like I still open my bedroom window or I text my wife, holy fuck, like I'm in Canada. Like I cannot believe it. It's such an honor to me to be able to be here. Like I don't think I get to be here just because I decided to. No, it was a privilege to be selected as part of the PR program to come here. Like I'm a Canadian on probation, I call it. That's how I view it.
Cool. It's wonderful. I'm sorry if you're someplace where you have to say, no, I'm one of the good immigrants.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, but there are so many people right now who are looking for scapegoats for anything.
Yeah.
So if it's ever happened to you, I want to apologize
No, never.
on behalf of the entire rational thinking.
No, man, it's been a year. I've had nothing but good interactions with people. I've often texted my wife holy fuck, this lady yelled at me for not wearing a jacket in winter. Which, I mean, it's silly to you guys, but to
That's so
me,
cool.
it's holy fuck, this lady cared so much about me, a stranger, that she had to yell at me. Don't you have a jacket at home? I'm like, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your concern, madam.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. This is an increasingly cool night. Okay. I got 3 initials here. For the second or third last performer, JCK. That's me. That is you. Why did you just write down Jake? I would have known that. Twice I've messed up the names of somebody that I know here. I always tell people I'm frequently stupid. I'm not rude. It's a lateral move at best. Anyhow, Jake is the founder of this space, and I'm not trying to blow smoke. I am incredibly grateful that he's encouraged my behavior here, and I'm delighted to introduce him. Jake.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it is a very cool night. We've had a lot of comedy shows here, and this is kind of a different vibe, and I love it. It's not as manic. You're allowed to be a little bit, slower. I want to tell a story about hypnotism, and I'll tell you the reason I was thinking about hypnotism. I've got this crazy idea that I'm going to put on a one-man show during the Fringe Festival coming up. And in fact, this venue is going to be a space where there's going to be 30 shows over 11 days. So if you're into that kind of weird theater stuff, we're going to have a lot of fun here, maybe even some after parties. So during that 11 days, this is going to be kind of like a hotspot for Fringe. And I thought, well, what can I talk about? And I for whatever reason, was reminded of this time that I was hypnotized, or I wasn't hypnotized. It was Frosh Week. I don't know if you've gone to university here in Canada. The first week in particular is kind of crazy. Everyone's drinking, partying, dancing. All that is happening. But something else is happening. A lot of the kids there, and me included, the first week there in university, it's like I have the opportunity to be a different person. It's like I'm going to a school where I don't really know anybody, and this is like a great opportunity to be completely somebody else, essentially to I'm using the word break differently, to make a break with yourself and be a different person. I'm reminded of my dad. He, when I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk about during the one-man show, I got to talk about my dad. And part of the subheading of the show might be something like nihilism, narcissism, hypnotism, and I could talk about all those and maybe break it down into those pieces. But my dad had this interesting. He was kind of I guess he was a bit of a, well, he wasn't a mobster, but he was kind of like an underworld in Istanbul. And I was a kid growing up with him there. And he kind of instilled in me this kind of paranoia about people, always be on guard for being conned, essentially. He had this kind of a paranoid way of teaching me things, which I found really helpful in retrospect. But things like hypnotism, for example, seem like the ultimate con. It's like, growing up, I always thought it was fake. And I'm still not sure, but we'll get to why. Until you start thinking about hypnotism in a different way, and I'll tell you the story. So Frosh Week, everyone's having a great time. We have this comedian / hypnotist. I guess he's more of a hypnotist. In fact, I looked him up recently because I hadn't thought of him in about, 30, 40 years. How old am I? I'm not sure. And he is running a hypnotism school now, so he takes it pretty seriously. And I noticed something when it came time to pick the people out of the audience to come on stage and be, part of the show. It seemed clear that he was picking really kind of the narcissist. Like everyone who's jumping up and down, pick me, yelling, jumping, drunk or whatever, making a spectacle. And those are the people he would pick to come on stage. And I happened to be, for whatever reason, I wasn't really that kind of a guy, but that particular day, I'm trying out new personas. I'm just like, yeah, pick me. I'm going to get on stage and do this thing. And he picked me, and I got on stage. It's like, shit, I don't like this kind of attention. I don't want to be up here. What the fuck am I doing? But, I'm putting on a brave front. And the hypnotist is quite good. He's trying, but I think he's having some difficulty. It's not like things aren't clicking. I think the students are probably too drunk. It's kind of chaotic. And he lines up people and he gives them suggestions to do things, and they kind of go along and they, cluck like chickens or whatever. And when it comes time to me, I basically, I don't know why, I just collapsed and lied down there mainly because I didn't know what the fuck to do. And I kind of lied there, and then the hypnotist went along with it. It's like, well, okay, I guess we'll get back to you, or something funny like that, some quip. And I lied there for about 20 minutes while the show went on. And I was kind of like pretending I was like zoned out or something. And I was, I guess. And then for whatever reason, later on in the show, I just kind of got up and joined the show again. And he was very happy to see that. And he immediately got me involved. And because of the show, it should be noted that for most of the first year, my freshman year, I was known around campus as Mr. Extension, and you'll see why. So the hypnotist says, you are a male stripper, and your name is Mr. Extension, and you're going to put on a show for us. It's like, oh no, it's my worst nightmare. I don't even dance in public. I dance alone, of course. I'm like, this is the 80s, and I grew up in Hamilton. I like to dance, but I didn't dance in public. And here I am, I'm supposed to strip or pretend to strip. Like, it was really weird, but the new persona kicked in, and I actually went along with it. I started doing it. I'm not going to do it right now. Move my hips, whatever. And then I was actually wearing shorts at the time. That's Frosh Week. Everyone's like living in tents. And some guy behind me in lineup, one of the performers / audience members, he pulls down my shorts. I don't think everyone saw it. I think by the time he did that, I was kind of turned around, and maybe they saw my butt. I wasn't really that visible. But I kind of went along with it, and we all laughed, and it was kind of it turned out to be a great show. In fact, at the end of the show, the hypnotist actually handed me $20. And basically, he said, I could really use a guy like you every night. This is amazing. So I kind of gave him a break by showing up there, and I got a break. I got to break myself into a completely different person. But then, it wasn't until many, many years later, well, first of all, after the show, I forgot one important part. One of the last things he did was, he said, okay, he took me aside and he said, later on in the night, I'm going to say these words, and I can't remember what the words were, like XYZ. And when you hear me say those words, you're going to run around and you're going to be Mr. T, and you're going to yell, I'm Mr. T, and I'm a badass, and I'm looking for a good ass. I don't know why. That's what I'm supposed to do when I hear those words. And I completely forget about it. The DJ puts on the music. People get up, they're dancing. And a little while later, everyone starts looking at me. And I realize that the hypnotist has taken the mic and said those words, XYZ. And now everyone's kind of like trying to find me, like, where's that guy? And I'm just like, moving to the music, got a beer in my hand. And then I realize what's happening. And I hear those words. And again, I'm in on the gag. I think it is bullshit. I've confirmed it. I'm in on it. And this is kind of fun, right? So I start going, I do the Mr. T. I'm Mr. T. I'm a badass. I'm looking for a good ass. And I like stare at people right in the face while I say that. And they're just like taken aback. And then after all this happens, he snaps his finger or something, and I come out of it and act like I'm surprised. And for many months, people would come up to me and ask me, like, how did that feel? That's like, you were in another zone, and we're like, did it feel like you were in another planet? I said, no, I was all bullshit. I was just going along with the gag. And no one believed me. And it's, no, man, you were hypnotized. It's like, nobody believed it. And then it wasn't until many, many years later where I realized, wait a minute, I did exactly what he suggested. I did it exactly the way he suggested I do it, at the exact time that he suggested I do it. What else is hypnotism? Like, that's hypnotism. He made me do things by saying things, but I think of hypnotism in kind of a more, I don't know, endearing way. It's like hypnos, I think, is Greek for dream or dreaming. So to me, hypnotism is like bringing someone into your dream. It's like, to me, a reality is very much a dream. I don't know if I mean that in a hairy, fairy kind of a hippie way. I'm not sure. So a hypnotist brings you into their dream, and you see this everywhere. And I realize now that basically we're all kind of hypnotists in a strange sort of way, because we're always trying to bring people into our dream. I mean, it could be a grand dream. It could be a little dream. It could be just some opinion you have. Art, what is it except a hypnotism? One painting is $48 million and another one gets no attention, but it could be just as brilliant. It's kind of a hypnotism act. We kind of go along with it. We're kind of in on the gag, but it still works. It's like we hypnotize ourselves. Steve Jobs was said to have, I won't go much longer. So you got art, business. Steve Jobs, it was said that he had what they called a reality distortion field around him. He would go off on tangent and say, well, this is what we have to do by Tuesday. And it was insane. But they started eventually getting into his dream. Like, he would hypnotize them. This is how they talk about it. I met some of these people who work with him, because I worked with Apple back in the 80s, 90s. And spirituality, of course. Some of that is even direct hypnotism, like cult leaders. They're hypnotizing people all the time. But to be charitable to them, they're bringing people into their dreams. They may have legitimate dreams of making the world better. We're hypnotizing each other. Anyway, I don't have an ending to this, but
Hey, well,
thank you so much.
Jake Schenk, everybody.
Thank you.
Wait, no, stay up for a sec. I got a question for you.
Yeah. Let me drink some water. My mouth
Drink
is
some
super
water.
dry.
Here. Okay, I got a philosophical question. You just said you're in on the joke. Yeah. But you did it anyhow. Would you have been in on the joke if someone before that show had approached you and said, here's $20, go along with it? Would you have said, yeah, sure, I have nothing else to do? Or was there a moment where you just thought, what the hell, I'm here, I might as well go for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's as I said, it was kind of a refreshing opportunity to try new things. It's not something I would have done a week before. It just happened that you had that chance to make a break, right? That's why I did it. I mean, I would never have planned that. If you said to me, give me $1,000 and do that, I wouldn't have done it.
Before this happened, were you a performer at all? I mean,
No, not at all.
I know you've got kind of a music background.
That was later even, yeah.
So this was sort of you walk off the street and this happens.
Well, yeah, this is, I guess I'm 19 years old, and that was probably, it was a break. Like, it was after that I find myself more likely and more able to do this, like get up here and talk to you, right?
Yeah, and
it's not something I would have been able to do as well.
Yeah,
because of that crazy break I got that night, without even planning it. I was given an instant lesson in how to do it.
I guess my question is, was it a lesson, or did you suddenly find you had permission to do something?
That's an interesting question. Probably was looking for permission. Yeah, because there's always a part of me that wanted to do that, right? I mean, a lot of us have that, but most of us never get up there and do it.
That segues beautifully, because we've had two people sign up since they just walked in here.
Awesome.
So I'm going to do these two. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Cool. Let's do a trade. I'll keep that mic. You take
The
this
mic.
mic.
Oh, okay. You can just keep your mic the whole time. Oh, the other way.
Other way, okay.
There we go. Like have a drink. Yeah.
For those playing along at home, we have 3 more people. 2 of them have signed up since coming in and checking things out. Is that okay with everybody here? Nobody's got to go home and feed the cat or anything like that? I'm not hearing people say no, so we're going to keep going. First person I have met a long time ago. I knew her name because she saw my Facebook post about this and said, this is very interesting. Could I buy tickets in advance or can I just show up? As it happens, she's shown up. And I am dying to find out what she has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Wanda Carroll.
Never been good with these mics. Oh, this will work, right? Oh my God, I'm so nervous, you guys. And I have been doing one-woman shows for years. But as soon as I said to Michael, oh, I'll do something, I just went, oh. So bear with me. But I thought of something where I got a break. I didn't get my driver's license till I was in my late 30s. I'd always been on the passenger side. I always lived, when I lived in Halifax, I lived close to where I worked, everything, the grocery store, everything. When I lived in Toronto, I had the TTC, I biked, I didn't need a driver's license. So when I got to my late 30s, mid to late 30s, I said, oh, I really got to get my license. But here's the thing, when you've spent that over 3 decades on the passenger side, it is terrifying to get in the driver's seat. I would often sit in the passenger side and be looking at the driver and thinking to myself, oh my God, how do they do that? How do they, on the highway and you're going 120 kilometers an hour, like, oh my God, how did they do that? Are they not terrified? But they weren't. So I went and I went to Young Drivers of Canada. And I started to go on my lessons. And I was so afraid that I would stand outside my building because the way it worked was if the instructor showed up, I had to wait 20 minutes for the instructor to show up, traffic and whatnot in Toronto. And so I would stand out there and I would literally pray that there was a traffic jam somewhere and he wouldn't make it. But he always did. So I got my license. Took a while. I think I did twice the lessons I needed because I was so nervous, but I got it. Then I only ever driven in Toronto, right, where there's always lights. Never had to worry about, driving in the dark, complete dark, because driving in the city and driving in the country, 2 different ball games. Moved to Nova Scotia in 2007. For the first time, I was going to be driving from where I moved to a little rural community to a bigger center, to Windsor, and I had to drive at night. And so I said to my then husband, so I said, do you want to explain to me this high beam, low beam business? And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, I know you do something with the high beam. It's like, but how do you do that? He's like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, no. I'm like, I've only ever driven in Toronto. I've never used high beams. So he had to explain to me, you just press it out. I'm like, cool. And then he said, well, don't forget now, when someone's coming towards you, you got to turn them down. Great. So I go, it's December, I drive to the job that I have, which is about 40 minutes away from where I live. And when I come back out, it's pitch black. They just finished this new stretch of highway. So not only is it's a dark night, it's a December, so it's cloudy, so dark. Then I have to drive, and there's no lights, just the lights of the car. So all I'm thinking is, how do I know the road is still there when I turn that corner? How do I keep going, 80, 90, 100 kilometers an hour and still know? So when I got home, I said to my husband, I said, well, how do I know? And he goes, I don't know what to tell you. You just got to have faith that the road's going to be there. It's like, okay. So I finally got used to that. So now I'm good to go. I moved back to, I moved to Hamilton in 2018. And when I moved here, I also got a new job in the film industry, in locations. I tell you it's in locations because we do a lot of driving. One day, I had to get up and I had to go to Cambridge at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I get up, get the car, driving along, got onto the 403. Now, I didn't move over because I had my own lane when I got on, and I was getting off at the next exit. So I was like, well, I'll just stay here. And the person, the truck, the big truck that was in the other lane was only going like 85 or 90 kilometers an hour. I'm like, oh, my exit's right there. So I did what you're not supposed to do. I was attempting to pass him on the right. I mean, it was 3 lanes. There was lots of lanes. So I just figured he wasn't coming over. So as I go past him, and now I'm here, I'm in the front seat, obviously, I'm driving. And no, seriously, when I first got my license, I went to the Duffer Mall. I came out, got into the passenger side because I forgot that I was the driver. And then, because I thought someone might see me and go, oh my God, what an idiot, like they would know, I opened up the glove compartment and started ruffling through to say, oh yeah, here it is, I found it. So what I'm trying to say is we were parallel. So the front seat, my cab to the big truck, but the truck was up higher. And all of a sudden I feel this bump, like, oh my God, like, I wonder what that was. Like the car didn't move, but it felt like something happened with the vehicle. So my next thought was, oh, I'm gonna have to go get that checked out. And as I'm having that thought, the back of the car is going towards the right, the front of the car is going towards the left. I'm now going across the highway, and as I go around, my side mirror comes in through the car, and my thought is, oh, so this is happening. So as it's happening, so now I'm going across the highway, right where the fast lane is. And so my next thought is, oh, this is how I die. Because you often wonder, like, how are you going to die? Well, I guess this is how I die. Now, when I had that thought, a voice, a thought, a message, I don't know what you want to call it, came into my head, and it said, no, this is not how you go out. And I thought, oh, okay, then I better turn the wheel of the car so that instead of hitting the guardrail front on, I would, like, do this, right? Just slide up alongside it. So that's what I did. All that happened in literally 3 to 4 seconds. I saw my death in front of me. Then I was like, no, you're not going to die. Well, I better do something with this car in case, I might be able to save the car at least. So I ended up, thankfully no cars were coming, and I ended up by the guardrail. The glass was all, because my side window broke, and it's all over me. And I pick up my phone, and I'm like, okay, so I decide to call my partner. And my friend had an accident a few weeks before that, and she was telling us she called her husband, and the first thing she said was, I had an accident. He freaked out. I'm like, well, I won't do that, because I don't want to freak him out. So when he answered the phone, I'm like, oh, I said, now don't panic. And he goes, oh my God, you were in an accident. Are you okay? So by the way, there's nothing you could say in that moment. So he's like, okay, where are you? I'm coming to get you. So then when I hung up from him, I called 911, explained what happened. And the lady said, are you okay? I'm like, there's no blood, no nothing. I think I'm fine. And so then she said, well, we're going to send you an ambulance. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I'm totally cool. I'm taking like long, deep breaths. I'm like, wow, like I'm really calm considering what just happened. And as soon as I hear the ambulance, I just lose it. So the ambulance person, paramedic, is on this side of the window. I managed to get the window down, and she goes, what's your name? Like, then I had to climb out over. I managed to get her name. She gets me out. Anyway, my partner comes to get me. We get the car taken to my mechanic. I take it to my mechanic, and he's like, yeah, this car's done. I'm like, yeah, I figured. But you know what? I said, I really feel like my dad was on my shoulder the whole time, because my dad had passed away about 20 years prior to that. And he goes, really? Really mockingly, right? He goes, really? He goes, well, he didn't prevent the accident now, did he? I'm like, well, he's just my dead father. He's not fucking God. And that was the break I got that day, because I didn't die. Thank you.
Stay for 1 second, please.
Right, I forgot.
Anybody here been in a car accident? In that you were driving? So I think that's kind of a universal sense of, oh, I know what's about to happen. This is going to be unpleasant. And there's a weird, unnatural calm.
Yes, it's bizarre.
Bizarre. When the ice was terrible a couple of weeks ago, I was on the mountain brow, and a pickup truck was coming out of a driveway, clearly didn't see me. And I realized, I'm about to hit this guy, like barring a miracle. The miracle happened is that he went too fast and he skidded. So I was going this way, he was coming out, and we kind of slid past each other, impossibly.
Yeah.
And I thought this shouldn't happen. At best, my car should be trashed. So I definitely understand that. That was a beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cool. And we have two more people, one of whom just came up to me a couple minutes ago and said, I would like to tell a story. I don't think she's been here since the start, but I definitely want to hear what she has to say. And here she is, Alicia. I don't have my book, so I don't have your last name. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia, and I'm going to tell a story that happened to me in my past. So when I was really young, I did not have a great relationship with my family or my parents, but we still all lived together. And so for up to 18 years, I felt just not authentic. I felt not true to myself, and I felt like I always had to prove myself. A lot of the reasons did stem from that relationship with my family and just how they treated me as being the black sheep of the family. A different viewpoint from everyone. I learned things differently. I acted very differently, love arts and everything like that. So definitely just felt very different from everybody. Going into university, I had to pay for my own university. So I was like, you know what? I want to graduate university with no debt. So that was the goal. I wanted to be different. I was like, everybody's treating me different, so might as well be different. So I worked 2 jobs. I worked 2 full-time jobs, and then I also did school full-time while also pursuing multiple activities to further myself as an individual. It was honestly fantastic. I had the best time in university. I had a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, learned so much. Education's important. But also, at the same time, I was not taking care of myself because I always felt like, once again, I had to prove myself. I would not listen to myself or what my intuition was saying, and I was always listening to other people for their approval, mainly because I wasn't getting that growing up in my childhood. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do the most to get it all. So when I had the perfect moment set up for myself, where essentially I had the perfect job lined up. I was gonna be a residence don, and this was in 3rd year. I had enough money saved up where I didn't have to actually work that year. I just had to be a residence don, had a serving job on the side, not too much, but everything was perfect for my career path that I wanted to take. I wanted to be a teacher at the time. During that point in time, I had to give a presentation just about diversity and just how important it is to treat other people with respect, because I was also the diversity representative. But I didn't notice a few problems coming up during that point in time. Because I was allowed to rest, I had to stop for a second and think and be with myself and talk to myself. And all the past trauma of not feeling enough and I'll do this and I'll do that to feel better. I mean, everything's set up. I don't have to do anything. I just have to basically live each and every day. But still, I just did not feel enough. So I felt very stressed out, extremely stressed out. And during this training to be this residence Dawn, mind you, if I did it, once again, I would have graduated in 4 years, everything set up perfectly. But instead, I was learning so much about myself and mental health at the time, and just how anxiety is a thing and depression's a thing, but I had no idea growing up. I had African parents, and every time I told them, oh, dude, this happened, and it made me feel really sad, and I was sad for a long time, they're like, oh, just pray to God, you'll be okay, like, don't worry about it, like, oh, like, depression's not a real thing. So then growing up and being around other students, and they're like, I'm depressed, and like, people are like, oh yeah, like, that's okay, like, we could do I was so surprised and so shocked, and so I essentially had a little bit of a mental breakdown, just a little bit, where I was giving this important presentation, but also learning about myself at the exact same time, and it was just such a mind F. It really messed with my mind, because I'm trying to teach people about being better, but I don't feel as good. I don't feel like I'm worthy of that proper treatment. So it stopped everything. I lost the job, actually, because I had the mental breakdown during a presentation, and it also, I had to move back home with neglectful parents, so that was also not great. And all the dreams that I had set up, just gone in literally a second. And it was weird. No idea what to do with myself, because now I'm like, wow, I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to go to school and do all these things, but I don't even know how to like function as like a person. You know, I don't know how to like have a conversation and not like think about all of my actions during that conversation. But I had to sit. I had to sit still. And it was an interesting experience, because it definitely allowed important conversations within my family, because they're like, oh, you know, doctors came into the whole picture, and they're like, you know, this is what a lot of people actually do go through. Mental health is a thing. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves, because if you can't help yourself, how are you going to help somebody else? So I had to really, really learn that. And so the next year that was coming up, I had no plans. I didn't know what to do, but I just knew I was going to continue school. And an email comes up, and I don't often read like emails about like scholarship applications, not really into that. I didn't really often think I would get scholarships. I mean, I applied for a bursary, but like scholarship's different, where you have to like do a resume, you have to get references, you have to show your grades, you have to write a essay as well. There's multiple things. But I was like, you know, a voice inside my head was like, you're not doing anything. Might as well try this. And the scholarship was to go to Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey, fully paid. They would pay for your boarding, your education, your food, and like flights, everything. And so I was like, you know what? Like, okay, I'll do it. I did the application. I wrote the resume, and I also wrote an essay that was like really true and dear to my heart, which was like very personal, which was learning is outside the classroom. You don't have to just learn in an academic setting. You can learn just by talking to someone on the street. And so that's why I feel like going to Turkey would be a great experience. And I killed it in the interview, and I got the scholarship, actually. So I was, thank you. So it was very crazy, and I think I needed that break, or that mental breakdown, however you want to put it, because a part of myself died, but it was the negative part. It was the connotation or notion of not feeling worthy. It was the feeling of always having to prove myself, feeling of like, I want to just be like everybody else and just fit in and just limit myself so small so I don't irritate other people. And that had to die. It had to go in order for a new version of myself to be reborn. I was not able to do presentations for a long time because it was very stressful for me, but I'm like now trying to do like more public speaking and like share my side of the story. So I definitely think having breaks and just believing in yourself really puts you in a different life path. So thank you. Thank you. Wait.
Firstly, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you do a lot of public speaking now? Because that came out incredibly smoothly.
Oh, thank you. Actually, today I held, yes, I do for a short form, but like a long version, I hold like workshops as well.
Cool.
So I teach like organizations about diversity. So I had one today at a university. Yeah, it's great.
That is very cool. And I understand, like not feeling like you're worthy of something. That, what do they call it, imposter syndrome?
Yes.
Comes up at weird times across the board. I've known people who are insanely talented who are convinced they don't know what they're doing. I've been employed as a writer for the last 30 years. Some part of my brain is still saying, you're only kept in the office because they want to be polite. And that, I can stomp it down, but it's still there. And it sounds like you went to a more extreme space and you got out of it. So that's a wonderful story, and
thank you.
It's wonderful you got through it. Thank you for telling it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Just one more question. What brought you here tonight?
I had a day off. I'm with a friend right now, and I've been here before, and I really like your events. I've been mainly here for the comedy night, so cool. We did not know that this was a comedy night, but it was like a story, and then with the break, and when I was listening to everybody, it like literally that voice again was like, you know what, just go up, girl. Like,
it's cool.
Yeah, sure.
I'm glad you did. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Cheers. We got one more. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. And we have one more person. And this is very cool for me because I didn't know this person was coming. I have performed with them at 2 venues in Toronto, maybe 3, definitely 2. We both started, tell me if I'm wrong, we both started doing the whole storytelling thing at about the same time. And it's just fascinating. No one leaves your life as you get older. I knew this gentleman more from reputation than in person. We went to the same high school. We have some of the same friends. When we started performing at this particular place, it was like, oh yeah, I know, yeah, and you were here, and you went there, and you know this person, and so on. He has always been good, and I'm delighted he showed up unexpectedly, and I'm not going to say anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, Zeb Pike.
Keep it going for Michael Durbecker. And thank you to the Center for Talking Arts for doing this, because I think I love storytelling because you get to connect with people in a way that's kind of different from other things. Like you decide to get up and do it yourself. You hear somebody you're sitting in the audience and you hear somebody get up on stage and they tell you something and you're like, oh yeah, that's like that thing that I went through, and then you decide to try it yourself. And you connect in ways that I think are really important right now. I've been doing this longer than our strange times have been going on, but it seems much more relevant at the moment. So my wife is really wonderful. She's smart, she's kind, she's caring. And about 10, 15 years ago, it was springtime, it was my birthday, and she came up to me and she said, I've got everything planned. You don't need to worry about any of it. We're going to go out for wings, because my wife knows that I have a problem with wings. It's like I could literally eat them every night, and for a while I did, and then I was smart and I stopped doing that because I knew that was going to kill me. But it's a treat sometimes now. Like I can control that. She's like, our friends are going to meet us. We're going to go to Duff's because you like your wings buffalo and hot, and that's the best place. And our friends will meet us there. And I'm going to do all the driving so you can have as much beer as you want. And then she handed me a couple of tall boys, so I could start early, which was great. So, my day starts off, it's a beautiful spring day, and I've got a couple of beers in me, and 2 of our friends came to meet us at our place, and they were going to drive up with us, Toby and Paul. And Toby gets a little car sick, so she was sitting in the passenger seat up front, and I was sitting behind her in the back, and her husband Paul was next to me, my wife was driving. And it's just like, it's one of those, it's like the weather we've been having lately. It's like the first good weather after winter. You just feel, it just makes you feel so nice, even if it's still kind of chilly. And I've got the window down, and I'm in that beautiful space where I'm not drunk, but I'm not really sober either. I'm just like in that happy buzz, and everything's gorgeous. We're having a wonderful time. We're driving up towards the restaurant. We're going up Bayview, and we suddenly realize we've gone too far. We haven't really gone there very much. So, but we've gone too far, so we've got to turn around. So my wife, she pulls into a driveway, so she can back out. But as she pulls into the driveway, the lights just north of us change, and then suddenly there's a bunch of traffic, so we're sort of stuck in the driveway. And to be fair, she was blocking the sidewalk, which you're not supposed to do. But there's also nobody around, so who cares, right? It doesn't really matter. It's one of those rules where it only matters if it's actually going to affect people. But we're sitting there. It's kind of a busy intersection, and there's a lot of traffic coming. So we're sitting there for a while, and after a bit, this guy comes riding up the sidewalk on his bicycle. He's he could have been anywhere between 18 and 22-ish. He was young. He's wearing really fancy sneakers. He's wearing cargo shorts. He's got a pristine white sleeveless undershirt. His hair is shaved super, super tight and dyed bleach blonde because he clearly wants to be Eminem. This is a guy that is definitely trying to look like Eminem. And as he approaches us, he just starts to scream, "You goddamn fucking drivers think you own everything. Get off the sidewalk!" Now, I'm not a cyclist. I believe cycling is the benefit for all of our cities, and I'm grateful for the infrastructure we've gotten since this incident happened. But I don't ride a bike. I've never really felt comfortable on them. I'm a pedestrian. I walk pretty much everywhere I go. I'll drive if I have to, but I will not if I can get away with it. If I have to. I can walk 2 hours to get someplace, but if I need to get there quickly, I'll take the subway as much of the way as I can and walk the rest. But I do believe in cycling. The problem is, as a pedestrian, at least twice a week, I get one of these assholes who are on the sidewalk, and they whip past you without any warning, and those guys piss me off. And because of that, and because I don't like people swearing at my wife, and also because I'm kind of drunk, I turn out the window and I look at him and I go, "Well, why don't you ride your bike on the road like a fucking grown-up?" Now, that's a stupid way to respond to anyone. You're never going to make a bad situation better by swearing and using your big boy voice. That doesn't work. That doesn't negotiate well. My wife is, of course, much smarter than me. She does the smart thing. She just pulls up forward further into the driveway and clears the sidewalk so this idiot can get past us. But, of course, now it's already antagonistic between him and I. And I'm keeping my eyes on him because I don't trust him. And he rides past our car. And he gets about, 8 feet past the car. And then just out of nowhere, falls over on his bike. Just completely falls over. Does for no reason whatsoever. He also falls towards the car, so it's obvious that we didn't cause this. And my wife, being a wonderful, nice, innocent person, she's like, "Oh my God, Zeb, he fell. Look, he's having trouble getting up. You should help him." And I'm thinking, no, I'm not getting out of the car at this point. That's not going to make this any better. And I watched the whole thing happen. He didn't hit his head. He didn't hurt himself. He just kind of fell over. So I'm like, this is not our problem. And if I get out of the car, it's just going to become our problem. I think we should just leave. He's fine. He's big enough to take care of himself. And I think she kind of got the logic of that. And by then the traffic had cleared up. So she pulls out backwards and does this sort of, does the turn. So now we're heading, to go south. And suddenly he has no trouble getting up, and he's on me. All of a sudden, pop, 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 through the window. He punches me in the face 3 times. And my reaction is what the fuck? Because does it really, is that how quickly this is going to escalate? This is stupid. And I just say to my wife, "Drive." And she says, "I can't." And I turn and I look, and there's a guy that looks exactly like him. Blonde hair, white undershirt, standing right in front of our car. He's blocking us. He's just appeared out of nowhere, and we can't move the car. And my wife's kind of panicking. She's like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And Paul next to me is panicking, and he goes, "Run him down!" And fortunately, she's smarter than that. She's smarter than both of us combined. And as I'm looking at this and trying to figure out what happens, like pop, 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 3 more punches to the side of my head. This guy's just like coming in through the window. And I have this moment of realization because like he's just punched me in the head 6 times. And I kind of don't care. Like this guy clearly can't throw a punch. And here's the thing, like I'm a pacifist. At some point in my life, long before this incident, I came to the understanding that violence was never going to solve any problems and that I was going to do everything I can to solve all of my problems non-violently. And I've managed to, that's stuck with me. I've never done anything about it. But you get to a point when somebody's punched you in the head 6 times and you have to say to yourself, this isn't going to stop unless I stop him. And I'm also thinking to myself, I think I can take him because he's already hit me 6 times and it really hasn't, it literally did not hurt at all. But also if you're gonna force me to fight you, I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to win because I don't want to fight. So one hand just kind of came down and I popped my seatbelt as surreptitiously as I could, and my other hand reached out and grabbed the handle of the door, and I waited for him to come back in, and then as soon as he was going to come back in, I was just going to slam the door open, hopefully causing some pain and throwing him off, giving me the element of surprise. I don't know if he saw me, I don't know if he saw the look in my eye, I don't know what it was, but he did not come back for more. He stayed back, and he's like, "You asshole, you hit me with your car, I'm calling the cops." And I'm like, "You took a dive. Sorry, like I saw the whole thing, like we didn't touch you. You should absolutely call the cops because you just assaulted me. You just punched me 6 times. Like, this is it. Like, call the cops. It's the smartest thing you could do. It's the best thing you could do for me." And he's like swearing at me, but he's like backing up. And by this point, his friend is backing away, and he's gotten out of the way. And as soon as he's gone, my wife's like, out of there. She pulls out, we're driving south. By this point, Toby's in the front seat. She's already on the phone with 911. Again, wives are smarter than husbands. I don't know what it is, but they seem to be in the right headset, at least in situations like this. And we're driving south on Bayview, and it's like I can't sit still because I'm no longer in that fight or flight mode. Like I made that decision already. I'm ready to fight, but now there's no one to fight. And I'm just sitting there in the car like full of adrenaline, and I just like I can't sit still. We get like a few blocks south of there and we pull off to the side so that the cops can meet up with us because they're on their way. And as soon as the car stops, I get out and I'm like pacing back and forth because I've just got all this fucking energy in my body, and and then I walk out to the block and I look up Bayview to see if they're following, and I'm looking and I see that they're not coming, and that made me so angry because in that moment all I wanted to do was just to kick his fucking ass. I just wanted to show him what a stupid thing it is to go and punch strangers, and that was the moment that I felt violated. Because he certainly violated me when he punched me. But when he made me give up the thing that I believe in, the thing that I think is important in life, the thing that I think makes the world a better place, when he made me abandon that and turn me into an animal, that's when I felt violated. The cops arrived. I don't know how long it took because by that point, time wasn't really functioning for me. I was starting to calm down, but I was still very hyper. The cops seemed to understand that. I told her what happened. She's like, okay, and our friends and my wife, they sort of corroborated everything and filled in some things that I maybe didn't remember. And the cop's like, okay, so here's the deal. She's like, we're not going to catch these guys. Just like straight up, she's like, we're not going to catch these guys. She's like, look, we're going to go back to the scene of the crime. We're going to go check it out, but they're not going to be there. And she's like, and after that, we'll go and we'll like check out the schoolyards and the parking lots where these kind of guys tend to hang out, but they're not going to be there either. And to be perfectly honest, you just described every teenage boy in this neighborhood. Like we've got nothing to go on. She says, we're going to take this seriously, but I just want you to understand that there's nothing really ever is going to come of this, and you should just let it go. and you should just go and have dinner with your friends and enjoy your birthday and just try and get past this. And I'm like, and you know, she was right. It made perfect sense. I got it. I understood that. And I was like, okay, thank you for helping. So we go to the restaurant, and all my friends are like, where the fuck have you been? Because there's a bunch of people they've been waiting for us. And in that moment, I realized that this guy just gave me a really good birthday present. Because I'm a storyteller. Like, this is what I do. And now I've got like a group of my friends, and I have a brand new story for them. And I'm like, oh yeah. So we sit down and I order some more beer. We order the wings, and I start telling my friends the story. We have like this really, really good birthday night. It's everything that we'd hoped it, everything my wife planned it to be. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. And at the end of the night, I've got like more beer in me than I should have had. And I'm sitting there, and the restaurant kind of goes a little quiet. And I look up at the front, and there's 2 cops at the front of the restaurant, and it seems like the manager doesn't really want to let them in. They're my cops, and which is such a weird thing to say, because I'm not really that fond of cops. But they're good when they're helping you. And so like everybody's in the restaurant's looking at the cops, and then the cop like points over at me, and then now everybody's looking at me, and they're like looking back and forth between me and the cops like it's some weird tennis match. And so I get up and I go out front with the cops, so just to, you know, the manager doesn't have to worry about them being in the restaurant. And we go outside, and the cop looks at me. She says, "Well, we got him." And I'm like, again, I'm drunk at this point, not kind of drunk. I'm fully drunk. And I'm like, "How did you catch him? You said that you weren't going to be able to, and it made perfect sense. Like this, now I'm confused." And she's like, "Well, we went back to the scene of the crime, and I was right. They weren't there, but there was witnesses that also saw what happened, and their story lines up exactly with yours. Like what they said is exactly what you said. So we know that you're telling us the truth." I'm like, "Okay, how did you catch him?" She said, "Well, we went to the schoolyards and stuff. He wasn't really there." And I'm like, "Can you get to the point where you explain to me how this, you know, how you caught him?" And she's like, "Oh, this is the best part." Like she's telling a joke. And she's like, "So the kid, when he took the dive," which he was taking a dive, the kid been playing too much GTA, and he scraped his leg. Yeah, got a bit of a scrape on the side. And then he went home to his mom. His mom saw the scrape on his leg, and she's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" She's like freaked out. Her son was hurt. I would freak out if my kid got hurt and came home scraped. I wouldn't freak out that much. I'd probably just clean it and dress it and not worry about it. But she really freaked out, and she took him to the hospital. And she's like, "How did this happen?" And he's like, "Well, these people in their car hit me while I was on my bicycle." And so then she called the police, not knowing that they were already looking for him. And the cop's like, "So it's up to you now. You gonna press charges against this guy for assault?" And I'm sitting there, and I'm like standing out there on Bayview Avenue, and I'm really drunk, and now I have to make a decision about somebody's future. That's like a really important, serious decision that maybe you should be sober for when you make these decisions. And I was aware of that at the time, but I also kind of didn't want this to go on any longer. So I'm like sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, do I want to press charges against this kid? You know, because he's a kid. Like at this point, I realize he's probably a teenager. I'm like, wow, do I do this? I'm like, well, so what? I think to myself, I play it out in my head, and I'm sort of talking it out loud. I'm like, so let's just imagine for a second I do want to press charges. What's going to come of that? I figure it's probably one of 2 things are going to happen. He's going to get off with a slap on the wrist. I mean, this neighborhood is one of the richer neighborhoods of Toronto. This kid is a rich white thug. He thinks he's tough, but he's really had everything given to him in his entire life. And if he gets a slap on the wrist, suddenly he's going to come back with some kind of fake street cred to show off to his other rich white thug friends. I'm like, that doesn't do us any good. I said, the other thing that might happen if I press charges is he might go to jail, where he's probably going to meet a real criminal who's going to teach him how to be a real criminal. And in my opinion, that doesn't help us any of us at all either. So I kind of don't see the point in pressing charges. But I also don't want to just like let this kid walk away from this. And I look at the cop and I'm like, I said, I don't want to press charges if I don't have to, but like what I would really like is if you could just like lean on him for a while. Like just make him sit with the idea that he's not going to go to university next year because he's going to be in jail. Let his parents sit with that for a little while. Let him like really sweat it over and like see, like, does he have remorse? Does he realize that he fucked up? Can you get him to roll over on his friend and maybe give up his friend too? And the cop just gets the biggest smile on her face, and she puts her hand on my arm and she's like, consider it my birthday present to you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. I have no notes other than is Duff still there?
Yeah, I think they are actually. I mean, there's a bunch of them now. There's one down on College, I think, and there's like one up in Markham somewhere.
I used to go there with somebody we both know, and I always felt incredibly sick afterwards, and it was great. It was worth it every second.
It's the best worst food ever.
And that story had this bizarre, surreal. Did you ever figure out who the identical twin was in front of the car?
Oh no, it was just his pal. I'm sure it was just some friend of his.
Just there was one more thing to take you out of. Firstly, this guy's hitting my head. Secondly, I'm drunk. And thirdly, there were two of them. What the hell?
It's like, yeah, he came out of nowhere. It's just like, that's why I actually think they were trying to pull some kind of weird scam, where he like took a dive on his bike, because this other kid came out of nowhere and just blocked our car.
Is there an epilogue? Did the cop just lean on them and then disappear?
To be honest, I have no idea what happened. The cop never said anything. I never heard back from them ever again. And by that point, I didn't care. You know, like, I would like to assume that he sweated it out. He probably was maybe spent an evening just completely shitting himself. And then the cop was like, hey, look, the guy's decided he's not going to.
Perfect.
You know, he's let him go. That was me giving him a break.
Perfect. Thank you for telling it. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all she wrote. So, couple things. Give yourself a hand of applause, man. This was amazing. We had some unexpected people, which was great. Everyone was completely on point this evening. As usual, I want to thank Jack and Dexter for putting everything together and for encouraging your behavior. If you performed tonight, or even if you didn't, if you want a downloadable copy of the show, please talk to Dex. You can buy one for $10. I believe it's also going to be available just for viewing off of the CFTA website. YouTube. But if you want to actually have one that you can download and mess around with as you see fit, please talk to Dex. We are doing this monthly. I have no idea what the next topic is going to be or what the format is going to be, but based on the level of talent I saw here and the level of interest, I hope I see you all again. Thank you, everybody who's shown up. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful night. Cheers. Good night.